GearNetwork.com.
Well, gang, it's October, and you know what that means. Cooler air, falling leaves, and, of course, Halloween. Right now, our Amazon Halloween store has everything you need for the adult, child, or even the pet in your life. Everything from costumes to candy, bags to accessories, and more is available through us, and you can have it delivered right to your front door just in time for that fateful Saturday in October. And right now, save 20% on select Halloween costumes and have your items delivered with free 2-day shipping when you sign up for your free 30-day trial of Amazon Prime. Go to GearNetwork.com/holiday and click the banner. It will take you directly to our Halloween store, and you can take advantage of all of the savings, including daily lightning deals that take place directly on that page. And of course, with every purchase, you support this network and all of our podcasts. So again, GearNetwork.com, click on the Gear Holiday Store up on the top banner there, and go ahead and shop away and save, and help us along the way. Happy Halloween from all your friends here at the Gear Radio Network.
Five, 4, 3.
God damn it, Tom.
Fucked hard.
Listen, we did this last time, remember? And you don't say the 3, the 2, or the 1. They're silent.
I didn't know that. Let's go again.
Okay.
And
5, 4,
3.
No, God damn it.
Just go ahead. No, just go.
We are Misguided Musings. I'm Jordan, and today I'm joined by Matt and Tom again.
Good morning.
In this episode 2. It is morning for us, and I don't really care where it is for you guys as you're listening to this. Today, on today's episode, we will talk about Donald Trump and the effect he's having on the political machine that is Republican and Democratic presidential primaries for 2016. We are brought to you exclusively by the Gear Network that features such shows as Better Live Than Dead and Get Ready America. We can be found on Twitter at Musing Podcast or on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Misguided Musings. Guys, before we get into it, anything interesting happened with you all this week?
Not me, no. Woke up every day and went to work, and I came back.
That sounds terrible.
This is probably the most interesting thing that I'll be doing all week.
I really feel sorry for you. Matt, I know that you had talked to me earlier about an awesome trip to Dunkin' Donuts. You want to share with everybody what happened?
It's always a wonderful trip to Dunkin' Donuts because, out of 10 trips, they'll probably you're batting at least 100 that they're going to give you the correct order.
So you think 1 out of 10 trips would be the correct order? I'm going less. I'm going like 0.33% of the time. Not even a full one trip.
Well,
I get the correct order.
I always handicap the service because, and I don't necessarily think it's the employees. It's such a rushed, expedited service there that the quality of their products is never the importance. It's how quickly we can get it to you and how fast after your first sip that you will have your first bowel movement. And it's just, so I went to Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't like going to Dunkin' Donuts. It's more, I'm headed to work, I want to get into work in time, and there's an express Dunkin' Donuts literally steps away from where I work. And, there's not a big line, so, I know I can get my coffee or baked good in less than a minute. So that's when I go to Dunkin' Donuts. So earlier this week, I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and the person working there was a complete sweetheart, but she was like, "Hey, how are you? What would you like?" I said, "Okay, I'd like a pumpkin iced coffee." "Oh, aren't you glad it's pumpkin season?" And I'm like, not too far away from or sure about pumpkin everything. So I was like, "Oh God, this is exactly why everything's wrong in our society." But it's a Dunkin' Donuts employee, and she's being very polite, and so I get the drink. And she says, "Oh, here you go, honey. Thank you so much for listening to me, bitch. I gave you a couple of extra pumps of the
I was
the
really
flavor."
going to say, did she give you some pumps before you went to work, huh?
Yeah, a couple of extra pumps.
Were you wearing like Air Nikes or something? She had to fill your shoes up.
So anyway, as I took a sip, the first thing I could taste was that menthol cough syrup flavor.
Menthol.
Oh, it's this is like because the coffee they use is like this fake syrup that is just extract. It was absolutely disgusting. It just tasted like, as I said, like a menthol, like cough drop sort of pumpkin flavor.
Are you sure she didn't grind up some Newports and stick it in there?
Honestly,
Maybe
that
some
would have
Camel
tasted
Crush.
better. I would have rather have eaten a pumpkin
ashtray.
flavored cigarette than actually drink this.
Speaking
I
of,
was
that's
like,
that's
I
probably
was like,
next.
"You
Yeah, right,
fucking
pumpkin cigarettes."
bitch!" I was like, "Jesus Christ!" And I just fucking threw the drink right down. It was in the T, Back Bay Station, and I just fucking stormed out of there. And obviously, the funniest thing about the T is there's always whack jobs, but people are
So that day you were that whack job, is what you're
I
saying.
was that
I
whack
think-
job, and no matter the difference in the diversity of the group of people that are in the train station at the time, there could be a strange person in the corner masturbating and pissing all over himself, and they won't even fucking bat an eye at him. But the 30-year-old guy who is pissed off he's drinking Dunkin' Donuts, everybody's gonna fucking stare at him and judge. So,
Well, you did throw a coffee.
yes, that's true. I
Matt, you threw
tried
the coffee.
What?
You threw the coffee.
I threw it down. I was out of so much anger, and I understand that an employee was being extremely nice, but I just,
I would feel
God.
bad for her if you ever had to go back there, because that sounds terrible for her.
Well, the next day there was a couple of delays on the train as usual for the MBTA, and I went back to that same location, and I ordered the same thing.
Oh man!
And this time, there was burnt bits on it. Like that little coffee grinds. And in fact, when she gave me this, she said, "I hope you like this one," and gave me a wink. And
I hope she spit in it, and you drank her spit, and now the two of you made out because her spit was in your mouth.
Well, I got my first bowel movement after that sip. 20 minutes into it, so I was poisoned.
So
There seems to be a lot of coffee hatred on the show so far. I mean, we've had two, and I think we've spent a total of 20 minutes about talking about coffee.
Well, I mean, I think it's less about the coffee hatred and more about the mass-produced coffee hatred. But so to follow up on that, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Dunkin's making macchiatos now.
What is a macchiato?
It is an espresso drink with like frothy milk and other things.
It's
Typically,
a frothy milk secretion?
No, just frothy milk. So typically you would be going to like a small coffee shop for that. And instead, Dunkin' Donuts is trying to make money and mass produce them. Now, I have never gone to Dunkin' Donuts, enjoyed whatever food or coffee drink that I've ever had from there, and then said, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to challenge these folks. Have you seen the people working at Dunkin' Donuts most times? I'm pretty sure they're all on work release. Okay? And so I don't know that I trust them enough to make a complicated drink. And then I had to try it. It was the most god-awful experience I think I've ever had to endure.
How long did it take you to get your first bowel movement?
On that one, it was probably only half an hour. I was driving, and I remember, sitting in traffic on my way into Boston, and my stomach just starts to knot up. Next thing I know, it's I'm trying to pull over and find a store or a restaurant that I could go and use the bathroom and paint the toilet, which I did. I totally painted the bathroom.
Wonderful abstract art, huh?
Yeah, it was. I call it brown and fall. So yeah, no, this drink tasted like boiled anger and sadness.
The pumpkin especially does that to me. It usually clears me out like Drano.
Yeah, but I mean that's my favorite part of the day is when I get home at the end of the night. I've had my pumpkin coffee on my drive home, and all of a sudden it really runs through you. Coming back through
vivid.
Boston. So
I wonder all the preservatives that are in that, because it can't be good, the amount of chemicals that they add to their coffee.
It's the GMOs.
GMO pumpkin.
Yeah, right. It's so bad. Listen, now that we've talked about poop and coffee pretty much this whole episode so far, let's get into something that we neglected to do last time. You have no idea who we are, and we have no idea who you are. And that's okay for us to not know you for right now. But you should probably know a little bit about us.
I'm an introvert. I don't want to know anything about anybody.
Well, Matt, you picked the wrong profession then. We, as a group, have been friends for years. We're looking somewhere in the area of 14 or 15 years, right? Yeah. And so what I would say is that we all thought it would be a great idea to give you opinions that mean nothing to you in your daily lives. I will say that I'm not qualified for you to take anything that I say seriously. I graduated with a degree in history from school. I was a mediocre student at best, but I'm very opinionated, and I have a lot of anger, and I figured this was a great outlet for that. Anyway, Tom, you wanna jump in and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, obviously, my name's Tom. I am a 30-year-old father of two, and unlike Jordan, I did not graduate college. I decided to jump straight into the workforce. And believe it or not, I'm not really that opinionated. I'm just kind of here.
Tom, you're not giving yourself enough credit. You are the magic man. You make this show happen with your IT prowess and your hitting the record button.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm the guy that hits the record button, and then when we're through, I hit the stop record button. That took some schooling to be able to master that. But, happy to say that I'm here and helping out, so...
Matt, do you have anything that you'd like to say? Being a broadcast expert.
Nah, I would prefer just the mystery to go on. Just
the man.
People...
Who's the man behind the voice? We need to know the man behind the voice.
Well, all right. I'm 30 years old, an alcoholic. I don't like waking up early in the morning. Went to school for broadcasting. Kind of a bullshit degree. I got it in a Cracker Jacks box. It was one of those situations in which it was either that or an arts degree. I chose the broadcasting one because, hey...
Your only choice were two equally worthless degrees?
Exactly, yeah. So I was just like, I'll choose the one that's even less worth anything. The one that, basically there's no more jobs in.
Matt, did you find those in two separate Cracker Jack boxes, or were they in the same one?
Well, when I picked up the Cracker Jack box, it said either a broadcasting degree or an arts degree. So
it was just to pick your poison, I think.
It was a pick your poison. I chose the red pill, and I did a little work in radio, a little production here and there. Nothing panned out. Now I work for a bank, so...
Yeah, and that scares me.
Totally sold out, man.
No, so Matt, you also undersell yourself a little bit. You're the reason for all of our production work. You make this sound terrible or good, so people just remember that. If you have any anger towards the way this show sounds, when everything is said and done, I would blame Matt, because he's the one who does all the post-production and, editing and everything like that.
I'm also I was about to say the band. I was about to say the show's punching bag. So
yeah,
feel free to hit me with some discussed or whatever.
So that's a little bit about us. I bring the lack of knowledge to the show. Tom brings the lack of opinion, and Matt brings the lack of production work. So I think that sums it all up. Here's how this episode's going to go this week. We're going to talk about Donald Trump, and we're going to talk about all the silly, stupid things he says. And then I'm going to tell you why I like what he and Bernie Sanders are doing to the status quo for the Republican and Democratic parties here in America. To get started, Donald Trump is a terrible, terrible person. He's a racist and a bigot. He thinks he knows everything, which is just couldn't be farther from the truth. If Donald Trump had a house in your neighborhood, he would be that drunk neighbor who yells at all the kids on his lawn and then shakes his fist at the clouds. He's just that type of awful. I think it bears mentioning that he's not fit for the presidency, but on the flip side, a friend of this show, who you guys will meet in a couple episodes, he's always said that Donald Trump isn't the president that we need, he's the president that we deserve in America. And I think, his point is very valid. We did this to ourselves. There's a lot of people who were calling for him to run for the past few years for president, and I think that, all the support that he's getting from a lot of people who don't know the decision that they're trying to make, and they don't levy the weight of that decision.
I think it's funny how he thinks he's basically a god. I read his. I spent some time this morning reading about Trump, and he's got a couple of websites out there, but one is literally just a list of his accomplishments. And one of the first things that he says is that he worked with his father or for his father, and all he talks about is how he's better than his father. Just straight off the bat, that's how he begins his little self-description. I would call it, I guess. Somebody like that. I mean, where's their mind at? You know what I mean? What's going to happen if this guy gets into office? Seriously, and he thinks he's better or bigger than God.
Yeah,
I've never seen anybody with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, like Mr. Trump.
Perfectly put, yeah.
I mean, just everything, and anytime you criticize him, all he does is basically say, "You're jealous. You're jealous of me. I'm the greatest real estate mogul there ever was," which is obviously
Which is
not
why he had
true.
to declare bankruptcy four separate occasions,
yes.
for 4 different businesses.
Also, a lot of people don't realize he always says, "I'm a self-made man." His father was a very wealthy person, which, there's nothing wrong with. It's, if you come from money, I don't think that should necessarily negate you from, seeking office, becoming a successful business person. But it's just the lies and the constant promotion of himself. This whole political candidacy is a complete charade. It's basically there because his popularity has sank, his show's ratings have went down, and he's basically using this as a platform to, get more notoriety. And I don't think at first he ever thought he had a chance of doing this, but I keep on hearing, every time something happens or anytime he comes out and says anything outrageous or bigoted, this is going to be the end of Trump. This is what's going to kill his candidacy. We're now 3 months into it, or I think close to 4 since he declared his candidacy, and he's still on top of the polls.
No, but here's the thing, right?
And the next person close to him, Ben Carson, is a complete nutcase as well.
It depends on the polls that you're listening to, because what I'm seeing is that the early polls are showing that Donald Trump and Carly Fiorina, who's the former HP executive or CEO, I should say, and Ben Carson's really fallen off. And a lot of people have started to look at Trump and how he's handled himself in these Republican debates, and they understand that he doesn't know anybody outside of Vladimir Putin. And that was very telling, and I think people are starting to realize who he really is. And so what I will say is what I am watching is a complete train wreck. And I love it because I think what he's doing is terrible. And if he gets in, I can't fathom what's going to happen to this country. And so what I will say about what I like about what he's doing is he is making everybody very uncomfortable. He is taking the normal political machine and he is derailing it completely. Here's what I mean. There was a moment in the first presidential debate for the primary for the top 10 candidates where they had talked about Donald Trump giving money to Hillary Clinton. And Donald Trump, his rebuttal to that candidate was, I've given money to most people up here on this stage. And you had this moment where you were like, oh my God, what? Like, that never happens. If somebody were to come up and just, come out of the blue, I mean, he's not a politician. And I think that's what I like about it, is he's an outsider coming in and he's derailing the machine that is the Republican committee. And I think what's even better is that what Bernie Sanders is doing, because I'm not a huge fan of some of his policies, but he's doing the same thing on the Democratic side. And I won't ever say that he and Donald Trump are the same person, because they are two totally different people. I respect Bernie Sanders. I hate Donald Trump. And what Bernie Sanders is doing is he's garnering so much grassroots support, and he is so good at filling buildings and parking lots. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but he actually filled up a parking garage with supporters of his at a rally. I mean, this guy is really making it uncomfortable because he's the only independent ever to run for president and be really actually considered a threat to the political machine. And so going back to Trump, the things that he says and how he handles himself when someone calls him into question makes everybody uncomfortable. And I think it's changing the way that we politicize. I mean, he is really going based off of belief. And I think what we have in the past, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong, what we've had in the past is this political machine where you've got all these Republicans who toe a very conservative line up until they're chosen as the candidate. And then they run back towards the middle so they can get a lot of the independent and undecided voters onto their side. And the Democrats toe a very, very liberal line during the nomination process. Once they're nominated, they come back towards the middle. And they toe this very more conservative line, this middle run to try and get that extra support, right? And he's not allowing them to do that. Neither Bernie nor Donald are allowing this to happen because they're just saying whatever they want for the most part. I mean, Bernie Sanders is more of a politician, so he's a little bit more eloquent, and he understands what the whole process is and how to handle it better. But I think he's doing wonderful things, and I think Donald Trump is actually a benefit to this Republican primary, and I don't think he's going to last much longer. He's got maybe one or two more debates before people see through what he's doing.
There is one thing about Donald Trump that I know the thing about Donald Trump is if he starts to derail a little bit and he goes down in the polls, there's a possibility that if he finishes in the top 5 or maybe even top 3, because I think with his popularity and his outrageous beliefs, I think he is at least going to finish, in Iowa and New Hampshire, at least in the top 3. What I think is going to happen is, and I know he's already signed a document or a piece of paper saying that he will not run on a third party. I would not I would not subtract. I mean, I think there's a very good chance if
he's never ruled that out. He's never ruled out running as a third party.
He signed
candidate.
a piece of paper before the second debate, basically saying that he is not going to run as an independent on the third party. Because you remember the first debate, the first question was, if any of you candidates do not get the nomination, will any of you possibly run as an independent? And he, of course, raised his hand.
Yeah, and there was also that question. It was, one of you wins the nomination. Does everybody else on stage pledge to support the one candidate? He was the only person who didn't do that.
But the other problem with Donald Trump, too, I've noticed, since he's jumped into the race, and I know some of the other candidates do have, in both parties, they do have some extreme beliefs. But for the most part, none of them are as, how could you put it, as loud, and the rhetoric is not as, how could you put it, disarming, as opposed to, basically the rhetoric from these other candidates are not as polarizing as Trump's. But one thing I've noticed, since Trump's popularity has risen, you've had other people. Jeb Bush has come out and said a couple of crazy things. And then, of course, Ben Carson, who's been trying to, derail Donald Trump by saying even more outrageous things than Donald Trump has said. And I think his candidacy, it's been entertaining to watch. I've certainly got some laughs. He's made the debates a lot more lively. Because, these debates they're terrible, But and you're going to see the Democratic one very shortly. It's probably aired after the show has went up, but it's going to be extremely boring, and the questions are going to be softballs, and you're just going to have the candidates basically towing the line of popularity, saying populist things so that they can get that run of applause. And the great thing about Donald Trump is he's actually made these debates watchable. Because it's, what the fuck is he going to say next, And what is going to be the reaction of the people? And how are these other candidates going to argue against it? And it's entertaining. And, I'm really scared if he does get, the nomination. But at the same time, for the amount of laughter and the comedy, it might be worth it.
Well, I have to ask, though, I think, last year, or not last year, the last presidential election, when Sarah Palin was involved, she was able to gather a lot of support, probably with a lot of the same people. And then she blew up almost completely right before the election. Will we see a similar thing with Donald Trump? Is he, that much of a, for lack of a better word, idiot?
I think he is. I think he is a total idiot. But the problem is he's pulling on the deep thoughts of the older Republicans in the party. And what I mean when I say that is that he's reaching this very deep-seated and hidden bigotry, I feel like. I want to build a wall. And maybe it's not bigotry. Maybe that's the wrong word. But you've got a lot of these older Republicans who are like, the Mexicans are coming in here, stealing our jobs. And he goes, I'd build a wall, and I'm the best at building walls. And I'd make them pay for it. Well,
yeah, I read that.
What he's saying things... But there's no backup for that. Do you think the Mexican government's going to pay to build a wall? You're an idiot. You really think you're going to build a fence that, I'm going to build a fence, and it's not going to be any fence. It's going to be a fence that you can't climb over. You can't just pull up a ladder and climb over it.
It's crazy because most illegals come in by the airplane as well. That most illegals don't come through the border. They actually come in through, airplanes.
Well, when you came over, you swam from Scotland on a door. So,
well, there are other factors in his immigration policy that I think are similar to putting up a wall. He wants to somehow freeze all money traveling that's earned illegally in the United States from traveling to outside of the country.
I don't know how you're going to do that.
I don't know how you do that. There's a million ways. There's PayPal and Google Wallet and all sorts of ways that you can buy gift cards and mail them home. I suppose there's all kinds of ways you can get money out of the country. I don't know how he plans on doing that.
He's a crazy person.
Slightly. But he also was talking about ending the birthright citizenship, which is an interesting tack on, I think, to that policy.
He's just channeling the anger of, Americans that are disenfranchised by this economy.
I get the support for that is you have people who in the Republican Party don't want an illegal coming over here. And when I say an illegal, I mean somebody who's come over here not through the proper channels, having a baby, and then being stuck here because of what they call an anchor baby, which is, a baby that's born in America. You can't deport the baby because it's an American citizen, but you can deport the parents, but you can't deport the parents because then that leaves the baby by itself. And so I see where he's getting at. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, because if you lose that, you lose, someone who came over here legally on a visa, had a child, the visa expired, and now what do? That child is legally here. I can't fathom this plan being a good idea. There's a lot of loopholes and things that I'm sure people would find, and you'd have to consider so many different avenues to make it work. And I don't think that's I just don't think it's something that is feasible. But what I do want to talk about after this next thought is the effect that the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary have on the races. And is it something that we're looking at the wrong group of Americans to decide early on who our presidential candidate is going to be? Are we looking at the demographics, the majority demographics in this country? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back into the show. We're going to hit on that topic. And I just want to finish up thoughts about Trump and Bernie Sanders and this political machine.
Do you have an itching or burning sensation when you urinate? Have you sat on a filthy bus seat or rubbed up against someone while using public transportation? Have you accidentally fallen into a penis or into a vagina? Or maybe you and your partners are just unfaithful lovers. Well, we have some tips for you. Go to a doctor, get tested, and don't tell a single soul. Seriously, not even your friends and family. They'll just judge you and potentially laugh at you behind your back. At least if the hot nurse at the doctor's office judges you, she doesn't know you, and you can just lie your way out of this situation. This was brought to you by the good folks at You Couldn't Keep Your Cock in Your Pants and Your Twat on Lockdown, could ya? We're working on a better name.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Just want to finish up any final thoughts on the Donald. I will say that none of us are for him, but I have to say I like what he's done, basically derailing what we are used to as a primary from the Republicans, them rolling out the same 12 burnt-out candidates each time, and really questioning how the Republican Party's doing things. And I think that's the only correlation between him and Bernie Sanders that I was trying to make, was that Bernie's doing the same thing for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party right now is so shook up from their leadership standpoint that they're thinking of trying to get Joe Biden to run because of all of the support that Bernie Sanders has right now. And he could really take down Hillary and be the Democratic candidate as an
funny.
independent socialist,
they
which I think is unreal.
They think Joe Biden's actually going to help. Joe Biden's going to take Hillary votes away, which means is going to give even Bernie Sanders a better chance of getting the nomination. It does not make any sense. The only way I could see Joe Biden joining this race if Hillary steps out and says, listen, this scandal with the internet server is not going away, and I am closing out my campaign for president. That's the only way I could see Joe Biden joining this race.
Well, she just had a political win. A judge just ruled that because it was a private server, that the contents on it, if she says they're personal, can't be reviewed.
That just angers me because, I work in a bank and emails are very sensitive because of the material that is in them, account numbers, and hackers are always trying to get into our server and find out information, with the bank account numbers. So if I were to send sensitive material, work-related, in my private Gmail account, and somebody or anybody in the company found out about that, I would be fired. I'd be shit-canned. I'd be brought into the HR office and told this is a violation of the company, even though no hacker, nobody got in and, was able to find this information. The fact that I'm using this in an unsecured server, I would be gone. And
so
I hate the argument of this is not a big deal. This is a big deal.
I don't want to get into that particular topic today, only because it's so big. I mean, the things that she has to deal with as far as the private server, and the other thing that she has to deal with as far as public outrage is Benghazi, which she still hasn't really come out and cleared up. So that's a whole different ballgame. Tom, do you have any final thoughts on the Donald and this political cycle?
I mean, no, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. I'm looking forward to this political cycle more than probably the last few, because I think that the Donald does provide that entertainment factor, and he's going to he's drawing, let's put it this way, he's drawing me into, following this whole thing, watching the debates to see what he's going to say. I think he's having the unintended consequence of maybe getting more people involved, or at least making people a little more educated than maybe they would have been otherwise. So.
Well, and I think that is ideally the kind of what I was trying to go for. The point that I was trying to make is that there's an unintended benefit to his candidacy, which is pulling in voters like yourself who may not have normally watched or been as interested. Now you're interested. Now you want to see, what he's saying, but you want to see, and you start to do some research and see how wrong some of the stuff that he is saying is. And then, again, you're changing up the way that this has normally gone in the past. So going forward, for the rest of the show, before we get to our final segment, I want to talk about the Iowa caucuses in New Hampshire as a small microcosm of what is actually, I think, a bigger problem.
Oh, it's how long this process is. I mean, for fuck's sake, Donald Trump declared his candidacy in June, which is over almost a year and a half before the November 2016 election. Right. And it's just this political process. These candidates, some of these candidates, it's almost 2 years they're campaigning for.
So, and here's what's really funny about this, right? Because that's not really where I wanted to go with where my issue lies, and that's a whole different thing. They're spending millions of dollars campaigning and traveling, and they're spending tons of money in Iowa and tons of money in New Hampshire. That's not the voting base that you should be looking at. Because, great, Iowa gets you 7-10 votes, whatever, right? I don't know what the Electoral College is off the top of my head for Iowa and New Hampshire, but I know that they aren't the majority of what Americans are now. And that's where I was really going with this, is the Iowa caucuses, Monday, February 1st, right? So that's 5 months away now. And I think what's really interesting is that on basically a week later, on February 9th, you've got the New Hampshire primaries.
6 electoral votes in Iowa.
Why, as a candidate, do I spend more time in Iowa than I would spend in New York, where I could get the electoral votes from New York or California or
Texas?
Right, exactly. And I think what ends up happening is you have somebody who loses Iowa, right? Or somebody who may lose New Hampshire and Iowa. And all of a sudden they start to drop out of the race. And you'll start to see campaigns freezing after those first two.
Start running out of money.
Well, it's not that they're running out of money, but they're freezing their campaigns because they don't think they've got a chance to win. And then you get Nevada and South Carolina. It's almost as if you've got this decision here to drop out of a primary race before you've even reached the heart of the voting public. I think they call it Super Tuesday.
Yes, that's when they have
Tuesday,
a
March
lot,
1st. You got 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 states voting in Super Tuesday. A lot of them are the heartland of America. Colorado, Oklahoma.
Massachusetts is on Super Tuesday, right?
Vermont, Massachusetts, Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado has caucuses that day. And so you're getting some of the bigger states, but I think like Massachusetts or North Carolina, even Georgia, you're getting a bigger cross-section of what true America is, not the heartland. And because the heartland, you've got the Bible Belt, but that's, I feel like, outweighed by what's in the urban areas. And you don't get to New York, New Jersey, California until much later, like April. You get New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, all in April. And then you don't get to California and New Jersey until June. By that point in time, by the time California votes on who they want to be the Democratic and Republican president, all of these other candidates who didn't have a snowball's chance have already dropped out. But maybe the people in California are going, well, you know what? That was the candidate that we really liked, so now we were forced to vote for candidate A over candidate B.
So what you're proposing is a Super Tuesday with all the states and basically the candidates instead of campaigning in Iowa and New Hampshire.
Exactly.
They should do all 50 states.
If we can do it on one day throughout the whole country to have one election for president and vice president, why can't we do that for the primaries? Why can't we do it in 1 month? So at the end of the month, you can actually look and say, oh, you know what? Donald Trump only got 36% of the vote, and Marco Rubio or whoever got 44% of the vote. Why can't we look at it and say, oh, well, Bernie Sanders got, 63% of the vote, oh, but he lost Iowa and New Hampshire.
And you know what I think they should do? And this may be going off topic a little bit, but the political process, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is going on. It goes on way too long. And I'm not saying that we should follow what other countries do, but I know in Great Britain, when they announce a election, they have 6 weeks to campaign. It's run public money. Each candidate or each party is given a certain amount of money to campaign on. They give equal time on the television to each candidate, so they don't have the Citizens United bullshit. They have only 6 weeks before the election. And I don't think that will ever happen in the United States, but how about this? We have a very similar Super Tuesday or where we have all the states vote on it. Well, why don't we do this in September, early September? You got your, when all the parties get together, they have their, they go to a city.
The conventions.
That Tuesday of the convention should be, the day in which people go out and vote. We find out either, that night or the next day who the candidate's going to be. 1 week it's the Democrats who have their convention. The next week is a Republican, or they can, mix
do it all on the same night. Just do it all on the same night.
All on the same night.
Here in Massachusetts, you can choose during the primary whether you want to vote Republican or you want to vote Democrat. If you're unregistered. If you're a registered Republican, you vote Republican. If you're a registered Democrat, you vote Democrat.
So if you're an independent in Massachusetts, like I wrote independent,
then you could at the time that you go to vote, you will choose to vote for the Republican primary or the Democratic primary.
See, honestly, I think you should be able to vote in both.
Exactly. You should be able to vote for the best candidate in each party.
That's always irritated me, yeah.
And you know what really bothers me about this? Iowa's got it in their state constitution that they are the first to cast their ballot for a primary. It's written into their state constitution that they are the first state in the country to have a caucus. If any other state decides that they're going to have one earlier than February 1st, Iowa has to go in and change their voting date by the law in their state. Conversely, in New Hampshire, it's the same way, except for they're the first state that actually has a statewide vote in a primary. It is in their state constitution that they are the second state to cast any type of decision into a primary for president. And that mindset is mind-boggling to me, because they're not the heart of America anymore.
I don't think they ever probably were, but it probably has to do with some sort of economic.
No, but I'm saying that you've got a cross section of people who aren't the majority in the country anymore, and I think what this is causing is, if you lose Iowa and you lose New Hampshire, and all of a sudden you start to lose some of these early states, you drop out before you hit the bigger states. Like I said earlier, New York, California, Texas even, and it just blows my mind that you have candidates who are just out of it before they even hit the real voting public, the real cross-section.
Where the electoral votes are, which are the most important. Well, unfortunately, it's the most important thing to win the election. It's not a popular vote. So, yeah, it changes up the whole strategy.
Yeah, that's something that's always bothered me with
we need a complete reform of that.
And the other thing that I think we need a complete reform of is the Electoral College, but I really don't want to get into that right now.
That'll be another episode.
Yeah, right. And so, I'm feeling pretty good about, my thoughts on this. I'm all wrapped up. Tom, do you have any other thoughts on...
What's your closing thoughts, Tom?
No, I think that was put aptly. I don't have anything to add.
Matt, anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't really get to?
No, I think I basically, stated my beliefs that, the process goes on too long. There's too much money involved. If we just have one day where, both conventions are running in early September, 2 months before the election, it gives us 8 weeks to decide, which candidate from each party you're going to vote for. I think it would make the election process a little more healthy.
Well, and I think the big thing is you have candidates that announce their candidacy, say, in March of 2016.
Okay.
Then between March and September, they do their campaigning. And then in September, maybe the first Tuesday in September, you have that Super Tuesday vote nationwide. They vote for who they like for Democrat and who they like for Republican. And then they have their conventions, and that's it. They announce who their candidate's going to be, and you've got 8 weeks from convention date to...
And you have 3 debates, too. And you know what I'd like to see, too? I'd like to see a debate the night before the election. I think that would be a great thing. Have your last debate the night before the election, a Monday night before the election. And also, too, and I know this could be another episode. I know we might be running a little too long in this segment. Election day should be a national holiday in which everybody has off, and basically their main objective that day is to go down and vote. Because, honestly,
you're right.
One of the reasons why we don't
agree.
have, 100% participation is because, a lot lot of work different hours, and these voting booths.
They're usually open for, very early in the morning till about 8 o'clock at night, right?
It's still, it's hard for somebody who, works many different, works during the day, has children, and, and it's not just that. In some places, because they're so disorganized in running the voting booths, that you have to wait almost 2 hours. So they need to figure out a new way and how to, first of all, make the voting process less painful, and also at the same time expedite it.
I think that I think that if you were to give everybody the day off, I would personally like to have an election day party, the night before, and get wasted. You know what I mean? Maybe watch the debate that you guys are talking about, maybe before the the election, and then go the next morning all hungover and place my vote for president and for Congress. I think it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is you're not ever going to have what we're talking about until our generation starts to become the politicians, and at that point, you won't have it because they're going to be stuck in the same political machine that keeps churning, sucking people in, and spitting out the same results year after year. So
but if you
it's
turn
all a
it,
pipe dream.
if you turn it into a party, though, people will come. People will place their votes.
Well, look at, and I know I'm getting off topic again, but like look at Scotland when they had their independent vote. You know how much percentage of the population voted? 88%. Now that was an important election for everybody.
Well, maybe if a full 100% of the population voted, you would no longer be a British citizen, Matt. So,
Ouch.
I think we're going to end this on that. But wait. It's time for Aw Fuck It.
Fuck it.
This week's Aw Fuck It is brought to you by Tom.
So you know what makes me say, fuck it? Apple picking. Every fucking year, people pile into their cars with their kids. They're snotty, bratty kids. They strap them down, and they drive hours to orchards that are loaded with people, okay? And to get into these orchards, you have to pay, what, $25, $30, $40 for a bushel of apples. You go in there and you're walking around and there's rotten apples everywhere. There's kids trying to eat the rotten apples. There's like nothing left on the trees. You have to be like push through people to get what you want. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do I want to put my kids in a car, strap them down, listen to them cry for an hour and 15 minutes to get to a place to pick apples when I could just go to the goddamn supermarket? Why do I want to empty my hard-earned wallet, my dollars, to go pick fucking apples off a tree that some dude is making probably like $5 an hour to do somewhere else? But wait, no. Let me pull my wallet. Let me pay you to pick apples, sir. Let me pay you to pick apples. No. See, in other places, people get paid to pick apples, and they don't get paid well. Why do we expose ourselves? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why?
Because it pleases you.
It does not please me. It does not please me one bit. You know, today, my son took a shit, okay? We're in the middle of this goddamn orchard, okay? He took a shit, and it smelled like hell. Are there any changing rooms? No. What the hell do you do? I laid him down in the middle of this orchard, in these rotten apple, like, smells, there's like bugs all over him and stuff. Laid him down, took the crap right out, threw it on the ground next to me, strapped them all back together. There's no changing rooms. I'm an hour, like 15 minutes away from home, and probably even the closest McDonald's. Where am I supposed to go? I left it there. You know what I mean? It's going to become fertilizer. I am not, and then they have a petting zoo. Oh, great. Oh, good. Petting zoo. Let's go over and look at the animals, kids. And they're like, all the animals. They're covered in shit. They're walking around their own shit. And like, there's kids picking up. My daughter goes, excuse me, Matt, this is my rant. My daughter goes, and she's like, oh, Dad, look at the goat. Oh, my God, the goat is amazing. I'm going to go look at the goat. And she sees that the goat's eating the food off the ground. She's like, Dad, look at all this food on the ground. I'm going to pick it up and feed it to the goat. She scoops up some food. I look in her hands, and there's goat shit and food in her hands. And she's feeding it to the goat. And the goat's eating it. Like, what the fuck? That's fucked up. Why do we do this to ourselves? And then,
is that like eating refried beans?
Listen, this is my rant. Then, okay, if that's not enough, all right, now I've got it's like, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We've been picking apples. I've been lugging 30 pounds worth of goddamn apples on my back, with 2 kids running around like nuts. I get over to the farmhouse to get, hot apple cider or some donuts or something for the hour and 15-minute drive it's going to be home. And, oh no, just to get into the stupid store, the farmhouse store, don't worry, another 20 minutes. So, you know what? Fuck apple picking.
With that being said, that ends this episode of Misguided Musings. Again, you can find us on Twitter at Musing Podcast, on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Misguided Musings, and you can find us exclusively on the Gear Network. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another production of Misguided Musings.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network. Hey, Dawn, how's it going?
Living the dream. I'm actually just getting ready to do this commercial.
Oh, you mean the commercial where I tell our listeners to tune into Gear Network every week to listen to our show, Get Ready America? That one?
Yeah, John, that's the one.
They can also listen to us talk about news, sports, whatever's on our minds, that...
And a little what's on our listeners' minds, but they're just too nice to say it.
Well, that, Dawn, is a real humdinger.
Humdinger.
Come join us this and every week for Get Ready America exclusively on the Gear Radio Network.
And the Gear Network app.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I am Ryan Wolf.
it's Mr. Perez.
And I have a question for you, Perez.
What's your question?
Do you like to listen to people talk about sports?
No. Of course I like sports and listening to people talk about sports.
Well, guess what? I have the perfect solution for you.
Solution for me?
There's a podcast
Okay.
on this very network.
This network?
Every single week you can hear it.
Really?
New content, latest and breaking news. We talk about baseball, football, hockey, basketball, soccer, UFC, whatever you want to talk about.
So sports in general.
They talk about sports in general. You got it.
I like
you
it.
know the dictionary.
I like
very,
it.
Very proud of you.
Thank you.
I must say, tune in. We are Better Live Than Dead.
You're not.
Every single week. You're not going to want to miss it. Exclusively here on the Gear Radio Network.